What if the absence of God isn't a void, but the ultimate freedom? What if, in a universe that offers no inherent meaning, we find the most liberating power, the freedom to create our own destiny? This is the core of existentialism, and at its heart lies atheism, a belief, or lack thereof, that frees us from the shackles of divine dictates and calls us to take responsibility for our own lives. Existentialism teaches us that in a world where God does not exist to impose meaning, we must create our own. But with this freedom comes a responsibility. The world may be absurd, but we are the authors of our own stories. Atheism, often misunderstood, becomes not a denial of purpose, but an invitation to live authentically, to embrace freedom without the need for divine intervention. Let us dive deep into this provocative question. Is atheism the ultimate freedom? And explore how existentialism empowers us to break free from the constraints of imposed beliefs and unlock the true power of our individual existence. We live in a world that, at its core, refuses to answer our most profound question: what is the meaning of life? For centuries, we've been told stories, by religion, by society, and by tradition, about who we are, where we come from, and where we're going. Yet, in the face of this grand narrative, the universe remains eerily indifferent, leaving us alone in the dark. This is where existentialism steps in. Existentialism doesn't shy away from the cold, hard truth of a meaningless universe. Instead, it insists that we confront it head-on. To exist in a universe that offers no inherent purpose is a harrowing thought, yet, this very absence of meaning is what sets us free. For existentialists, meaning isn't something that is handed to us. It is something we must create. To understand existentialism, we must first grasp the absurd, the central paradox that defines our existence. The absurdity of life is not just an intellectual concept. It is a visceral, emotional experience. We, as humans, are driven by a deep desire for meaning, for purpose, for order. Yet the universe, as we know, offers none of these things. Instead, it presents us with chaos and indifference. The concept of the absurd, first articulated by Albert Camus, is the recognition of this contradiction, that we yearn for meaning in a world that is inherently meaningless. The absurd is not a single event or a temporary feeling. It is the permanent condition of human existence. This confrontation with the absurd is what existentialists view as one of the most defining and, paradoxically, liberating aspects of life. Camus, in particular, argued that we can either surrender to the despair that this realization brings, or we can choose to rebel against the absurd. In the face of this cosmic meaninglessness, he proposed that we live life with full awareness of the void, but embrace it, not as something to fear, but as something to defy. To truly live is to accept the absurd and continue anyway, creating our own meaning as we go. This, according to Camus, is the triumph of human spirit. To laugh in the face of the void and say, "I will live fully, despite the meaningless universe that surrounds me." The ultimate challenge of existentialism lies in living authentically in a world that denies us any preordained meaning. If the universe doesn't provide us with an inherent purpose, then it falls to us to create it. And creating meaning isn't simply about picking up the pieces and building a life that looks normal. It's about choosing to live in a way that is genuinely yours, untainted by the expectations of society, religion, or tradition. This is where authenticity comes in. To live authentically is not to find the right answer to life's meaning, but to acknowledge the absurd and still choose to create something meaningful out of our fleeting existence. In the face of a universe that doesn't care, we become the architects of our own lives. In this absurd world, the existentialist invites us to take a deep breath and let go of the need for external validation. No higher power is going to tell us what our purpose is. We must create our purpose through personal freedom, through action, and through passion. This freedom, however, doesn't come without its challenges. It's not easy to live authentically when the world around us constantly pushes us to conform. But the very act of choosing our own path, despite the lack of cosmic direction, is what makes us truly free. In embracing the absurd, we don't surrender to nihilism. Instead, we transform it into a source of power. In a universe where nothing is guaranteed, we find that the only true certainty is our ability to create meaning. The existentialist rebirth is not just about acknowledging the absurd, it is about living in defiance of it, creating purpose in a purposeless world, and finding freedom in a reality that offers none. In a world that constantly shackles us to the expectations of others, the existentialist notion of radical freedom emerges as a blazing beacon of hope. Freedom, real, raw, unfiltered, is not a gift bestowed upon us by external forces, nor a mere privilege granted by society. It is our birthright, an inherent force, woven into the fabric of our very existence. Existentialism shatters the chains of determinism and tells us, you are free. You are completely free. Free to choose your actions, your beliefs, your life. Every decision you make is yours alone to bear the weight of. The burden of freedom is not a curse, it is your power. But here lies the paradox. This freedom, so profoundly liberating, can also become a source of anxiety, a suffocating weight of endless possibilities, each choice laden with responsibility. With radical freedom comes the terrifying awareness that no one else is coming to make our decisions. No higher power, no divine intervention, no set script or predetermined fate. It is us, you and me, standing on the edge of infinite possibility, with no one to blame but ourselves if we fall. The questions echo. What if I choose wrong? What if I fail? Yet within this very fear lies freedom's greatest gift, the ability to create. We are no longer bound by the chains of convention. We are not defined by the roles handed to us by society, by religion, or by tradition. We are free to write our own story, to create meaning in a universe that offers none. The freedom to choose is not just the freedom to act, it is the freedom to define, to shape our own values, to construct our own purpose out of the raw material of existence. Freedom is a double-edged sword. It is both the joy of infinite possibility and the burden of infinite responsibility. To stand in your radical freedom is to confront the vast emptiness that lies before you, the abyss of unfathomable choice, where every path leads to a new version of yourself. There is no guide, no map to follow, no higher power to dictate your purpose. You must choose who you will become, moment by moment, decision by decision. The weight of that responsibility is enough to crush the spirit if you let it. But do not let it. For within the burden of freedom lies an opportunity that transcends everything, the chance to live authentically. Freedom means no longer living in the shadow of others. It means breaking free from the false masks of societal expectations and embracing the truth of who you really are. It means creating meaning out of nothing, pulling it from the depths of your own soul, and sculpting a life that is uniquely yours. In the face of existential dread, there is joy, the joy of being the creator of your own destiny. No longer constrained by the imposed definitions of life, you stand at the center of your existence, the author of every moment, every choice. You are free to live the life you want to live, to make decisions that reflect your true self. And this freedom, as daunting as it may seem, is the ultimate gift. Radical freedom is the gateway to becoming who you were always meant to be. In a universe that lacks inherent meaning, existentialism offers us a choice: the freedom to create meaning in a world that gives us none. To live authentically is not simply to accept the chaos, but to transform it. Existentialism teaches us that the universe may not provide a preordained purpose, but that does not mean we cannot create our own. Each choice we make is an opportunity to build meaning, to design a life that resonates with our deepest values. We are the architects of our own existence. We are not subjects of some divine plan. We are the creators, sculpting our lives with every decision, every action. The meaning we seek is not waiting to be discovered. It is ours to create. Purpose is not handed down from above. It is born from within. Through our choices, we decide what matters. As we navigate the sea of existential freedom, we must ask ourselves, what do I value? What do I stand for? What life do I want to create? These are not questions of fate. They are the questions of radical freedom, and they are ours to answer. You are free, and in that freedom lies the power to create a life of your own making, a life that reflects the essence of who you truly are. In the absence of a divine figure, existentialism shatters the illusions that bind us to the idea of a higher power. The myth of God crumbles, leaving us naked in the vastness of the universe. There is no celestial being to guide us, no grand design to follow. Instead, we are left to face the cold reality that existence itself is meaningless, without inherent purpose. This void is not a place of despair. It is the canvas upon which we must paint our own meaning, our own destiny. At the heart of existentialist thought lies a powerful truth. We are alone in our freedom. The absence of God leaves us with one undeniable responsibility: to define ourselves. The myth of God no longer serves as a crutch, and without it we are forced to stand alone, raw and unprotected. But in this liberating emptiness, we discover our true power, the power to create meaning from within. To reject the external answers and instead turn inward, embracing the radical freedom of self-definition. To be human, according to existentialism, is to be thrown into existence. There is no plan, no purpose handed down from a divine source. We are cast into the world, unprepared, and forced to grapple with the chaos and absurdity of life. This concept of thrownness encapsulates our alienation in a universe that offers no easy answers. We are plunged into a world that we did not ask for, and yet we must make sense of it. Existentialism reveals that the human condition is one of constant becoming, where we are defined not by the world around us, but by the choices we make in it. In the face of overwhelming uncertainty, we are forced to create ourselves, to rise up and assert our individuality. Thrown into existence without warning, we must take responsibility for the lives we lead, and in doing so, we find our place in this chaotic cosmos. The key to overcoming alienation and meaninglessness lies not in seeking a divine answer, but in embracing the freedom to define ourselves in the face of this chaotic world. The essence of existentialism is the belief that meaning does not come from external sources. It must be created from within. Without the guidance of a higher power, without the myth of God to dictate our path, we are free to choose our own direction, to craft our own values. This is the true freedom of the existentialist, the freedom to create. Authentic action is the key to self-creation. In a world where meaning is not inherent, we must take the reins of our existence and shape our own destiny. Through thoughtful decisions and deliberate choices, we forge a path that is ours alone to define. It is in embracing radical freedom that we find purpose, not through submission to an external authority, but through the act of becoming who we truly are. Each choice we make, every action we take, contributes to the meaning we create for ourselves. In a world devoid of divine meaning, we are called to create our own, to live authentically, to reject the mask society places upon us, and to embrace the raw, unfiltered reality of who we truly are. It is in this self-creation that we finally discover the freedom to live fully, with purpose, without the constraints of a mythical God to impose false limits upon us. Existentialism, at its very core, challenges the conventions of belief, dismantles the myths that bind us to external authorities, and forces us to confront the raw truth of our existence. It is a philosophy that does not seek comfort in the comforting embrace of God or any higher power. Is existentialism inherently atheistic? The answer is clear. Existentialism is agnostic to belief, but its roots are deeply entrenched in the rejection of external meaning. Atheism, in this context, becomes a liberating force, a clean slate from which we are free to construct our own existence. In a world where the divine is rejected, existentialism flourishes because it rejects the illusion of a higher power that dictates our path. The absence of God leaves us with the profound freedom to define our own meaning, to create our own values, and to embrace the authenticity of being human in its rawest form. Without God, we face the abyss. Yet it is in facing that void that we find the courage to forge our own way. It is in atheism that existentialism truly awakens, unbound, unrestrained, and powerful. Atheism is not a mere denial of God. It is a profound awakening to the vast possibilities of human existence. To say, "I do not believe in God," is not to give up on life. It is to step into a new dimension of freedom, where the weight of divine expectation is lifted. This absence of belief offers an open space for the existential explorer, where we are free to venture into the depths of our own existence, without the shadow of a higher being constantly looming over us. This is where existentialism flourishes, when we are freed from the chains of tradition, religion, and divine purpose. Atheism allows us to discard the old myths, to see the world without the veils of religion clouding our perception. We are no longer beholden to preordained meanings, and in this powerful freedom, we find the raw essence of who we are. Atheism, therefore, becomes the ground zero of existentialism, a place where we can begin to question, challenge, and create the meaning of our own existence. Living without a belief in God is not a death sentence. It is the birth of radical freedom. In a universe devoid of divine purpose, we are faced with the ultimate responsibility to create meaning for ourselves. Without the comforting illusion of a higher power guiding us, we must face the absurdity of our existence head-on. There is no divine plan, no eternal reward, and no cosmic purpose. There is only us, and in that profound solitude, we must find purpose, or risk sinking into the void of meaninglessness. But it is in this very absence of meaning that we find our power. Without God, we are free to create, free to design our own lives, and free to embrace our own essence. The existential implications of atheism are immense. We are no longer dependent on a divine being to give us purpose. Instead, we become the creators of our own values, the architects of our own reality. In the face of existential despair, we find the freedom to act, to live authentically, and to reshape the world according to our own terms. We discard the mask of religion and convention, and in doing so, we reclaim our true identity, free, raw, and unbound by the constraints of a higher power. In a world that often feels overrun with illusion, meaninglessness stares us in the face. The systems, the structures, the societal expectations, all built on the falsehoods of external validation, hold us captive in a web of inauthenticity. How can we find meaning in the face of absurdity? This is the burning question of existentialism, and the answer lies within us. We, as individuals, are not victims of fate, nor are we bound by an external script. Instead, we are the authors of our lives, free to create our own meaning in a universe that offers none. The world may be absurd, yes, but it is within this absurdity that we find our freedom. The meaningless world is not a curse. It is the canvas on which we can paint our own truths. Existentialism teaches us that we are not here to fit into preordained narratives or to live according to some divine blueprint. We are here to choose. We are here to define ourselves. In a world where nothing inherently matters, we possess the ultimate power to create our own meaning, to live authentically. The ultimate existential challenge is to live authentically, to strip away the layers of societal conditioning, of inherited beliefs, and to step into our raw, true selves. Authenticity is not a luxury. It is an imperative, a call to arms against the suffocating forces of conformity. To create meaning in a meaningless world, we must forge our own path, unapologetically, fearlessly, and with the knowledge that we are responsible for every choice we make. In the absence of divine meaning, the existentialist embraces self-creation. We are not defined by others or by external validation. We are free to shape ourselves, to create our own values and purpose. Existentialism challenges us to take full ownership of our lives. The power to create is ours, but with it comes the burden of responsibility. We must accept the weight of our decisions, for they are what define us. But in this burden lies the greatest freedom from the shackles of other people's expectations, and the freedom to create the life we desire. In a world where traditional beliefs no longer provide us with a moral compass, existentialism offers a path forward. Living without belief in a higher power does not mean we are morally adrift. It means we must take responsibility for our own ethical decisions. We are not guided by divine commandments or societal norms. We are guided by our own understanding of what is right and just. Existentialism calls us to act authentically, to make ethical decisions based on our own values, and to recognize that we are accountable for the impact we have on the world. It is through self-reflection and self-creation that we find the ethical principles that resonate with us. The absence of a higher power places the responsibility squarely on our shoulders. But this is not a burden, it is an empowerment. We are free to choose our ethical path and create a moral framework that is deeply personal, authentic, and aligned with our true selves. The question is not whether a higher power exists to enforce morality. It is whether we have the courage to create our own moral code and live it out, authentically and without fear. As we've journeyed through the essence of existentialism and atheism, one thing is clear. True freedom lies not in following an external power, but in creating your own path in a universe that offers no predefined purpose. Atheism is not a rejection of meaning. It's a challenge to embrace freedom in its most radical form, to stand in the absurdity of life and choose your own values. In a world that offers no divine blueprint, you are the architect of your own life. The lack of a higher power doesn't limit you. It empowers you to shape your existence without fear, without guilt, without the constraints of a prescribed destiny. The absence of belief in God is not the end of meaning, but the beginning of true freedom. So take this knowledge, this freedom, and use it to create your own meaning. Atheism is not the end of the road. It is the doorway to an extraordinary journey of self-creation, responsibility, and limitless possibilities. The ultimate freedom is not in the search for an external answer, but in the power of the choice you make to live authentically, without compromise. The revolution of freedom begins within you. The choice to be free, to be yourself, is yours. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel for more deep dive explorations into philosophy, meaning, and the human condition. Share your thoughts in the comments. How do you define freedom in your life? And if you believe in this journey of inner revolution, share this video to awaken others to their own path of authentic existence.